Thank you everyone for joining for another edition of Midweek with Max, our first on X Spaces. Without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our co-founder, Max Sanchez, and we'll get things started.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. Excited to be trying this on Twitter, so hopefully my mic is also okay. Let me know if there's any audio issues. All right, cool. All right, so yeah, high level, still moving towards mainnet. A lot of work behind the scenes on the tech side. We've been working on continuing with the smart contract audit for the Bitcoin tunnel system. We're also getting in final code freezes this week for some of the remaining daemons, Opgeth, Optimism, and we'll be doing the testnet upgrade very soon, hopefully in the next 3 days. And so that'll be upgrading testnet to the final code release that we're going to be using for mainnet, and giving that a good battle test with all of the community's help on that side. And what else? A lot of working with partners right now, getting them onboarded. So working towards a mainnet still planned for this month currently. And so getting partners onboarded, protocols deployed. If you've been watching the Hemi Twitter and seeing all the partner announcements, we're working behind the scenes with all those people to actually get set up on Hemi and test things. Some of them are doing testnet deployments, and so the ones who do will be directing people to stuff on testnet that they can play around with. A lot of them just go direct to mainnet, and so the first time you'll be able to play with a lot of those partners will be when we do launch our official open public mainnet. So working towards that, and I think those are the main things. We did the infrastructure switch over to our new infrastructure provider last week, and things overall seem to be running well. We did have a issue over the weekend with op conductor, so we're trying a new setup for how the sequencers work to basically have redundancy and failover. And so we had one issue with how we configured that, so we're working on resolving that. But once we get that resolved, we'll be fully on the new infrastructure. And if you're running a pop miner right now, or if you're trying to run a node, you right now are connecting to that new infrastructure, and so things should be more performant. Pop mining, just because there's still 100,000 unique pop miners trying to connect, still not great, but it should be at least improved from what we had before. And on our side, we're seeing a lot better numbers on the back end for requests fulfilled and things like that we track. So looking good on that front. And I think that's it for the updates. And we do have an announcement at the end of the AMA, so stick around for that.
We could do the announcement now if you wanted.
Well, I'll do my update. This is Phil, in case anybody missed it. I'm speaking as the Hemi Network God account here. So I'll give a bit of an update as well. Right now the marketing team is very, very focused on. There's no other way to put it. Loving our partners to death. So we're very focused on right now building content that that reflects the great slate of partners that we have. So if anybody who's to anybody who's been paying attention, we've been announcing these partners at a clip of about 2 or 3 a week, and and it doesn't stop there. And so this is you've seen us announce with everybody from Swell and Symbiotic and Concrete and Avalon Labs, and all the way to on the Oracle front, Redstone, Pith. You've seen that we're working with Sushi. We're working with Oku, sort of the commercial arm of Uniswap. And you've seen all those announcements, but like I said, it doesn't stop there. And as a matter of fact, we've added to our developer relations team. We've added a gentleman named Pranjal, who is expanding our vision of developer relations to actually protocol relations, right, as we call it. So the desired relationship we have with anybody who works with us is that, it's deeper than the blog post and the press release and even deeper than the deployment on our network. It really, we really want to get down to the ones and zeros with everybody that we work with. And so we now have a resource who is dedicated to that. Of course, we're absolutely thrilled. Next week, there is going to be, we're sending a small delegation to Abu Dhabi. So the Bitcoin MENA conference, that's Middle East, North Africa. Bitcoin MENA conference from the same folks at BTC Media that gave us Bitcoin Nashville, where we launched last July. We are sending a delegation there. So if anybody happens to be out in that region, please track us down. But that is, of course, in the service of inking more partnerships, getting more people on board, et cetera, et cetera. So really happy to see that happening. On the media relations front, particularly on podcasts, we've got 2, maybe 3 more scheduled. I don't want to say who exactly just yet, but I'm sure you all saw before the Thanksgiving holiday in the U.S. The Cointelegraph piece, the Cointelegraph Agenda podcast that our co-founder Jeff Garza was on. Definitely give that a listen. I thought the reporters did a good job interrogating Jeff, and I think Jeff gave some excellent answers in terms of what we're doing at Hemi and why it's important. So if you haven't had a chance, go check it out. And we're also going to be dripping some clips of that throughout the week. So lots going on the marketing front. And I'll say again here on Twitter Spaces, the same thing I say to everybody on every call is a big part of our marketing success is going to come from this community. It's going to come from everybody here. So, if there's 140,000 some odd people in our Discord, but the ones that get our attention very quickly are the ones that say, what can I do? How can I help? And there's always something somebody can do in support of this effort. So with that, I can kick it back to Rick or John, Mr. Greenwood. If you're in a place where you can speak, I'd love to have you talk a bit more about Demos and our announcement yesterday. Whenever you get the chance, if you're available to speak, just click on Request Speaker and we'll give you the floor. But until that, I'll pump back to Rick.
Thank you so much, Phil. For anyone coming over from Discord, that's Batman, so you all know. We have one question that I'm seeing currently. I'm not seeing any more, but the first question is, Max, can you tell us more about Veriblock plans and if there's a connection to Hemi?
As I think we stated probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, stay tuned. Can't announce anything else yet, but there is an exciting announcement coming soon on that front.
That's what we've been doing. So actually, if everyone sees the thread with the reminder from T-1 hour ago, if you want to start posting questions there, or also feel free to tag me at Haxon401, I'll make sure your questions get answered immediately. In the interim, do we have any updates regarding the faucet?
Nothing concrete. We are looking to do something with Demos, so allowing anyone who's verified through Demos to do requests. The issue, to summarize for anyone who hasn't heard us talk about in the last AMA or two, basically people are abusing the faucet, and even though we had the verification that I think required you to link a Twitter account with a certain number of followers, that was not sufficient to keep people from abusing the faucet, and so we had tons of clearly Sybils just draining, hundreds of TBTC in a matter of hours. And so we did have to close it because that's unsustainable. But we are looking at doing a version of that that's linked to Deimos. And so if you're verified at Deimos, you'd then be able to link your Discord account to your Ethereum EOA. So we are planning on doing that, but there's other engineering tasks right now for mainnet prep that are taking priority over going in and updating the Discord bot, unfortunately. So are still thinking about stuff we could do as a stopgap, but that is the intended solution we're working towards.
All right, thank you for that. I know it's been a hot topic of conversation for folks in Discord.
I'm sure.
The fun never stops, but what are you gonna do? That's showbiz, baby. All right. Do we have? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's a user experience thing. I mean, the thing that we sometimes struggle with, of course, is obviously if somebody hits our Discord for the first time, they might think that our business is giving away just Bitcoin or just Ethereum, and but obviously, we know that it's a resource that people want to use, and we just want to prevent abuse of that resource. Of course, Demos is a big. It's going to be a big part of that. Rick, maybe I'd love to talk about the mascots.
So that was actually the big announcement that Max had alluded to. So I think we can have that conversation right now, as I'm not seeing questions on the board currently. So we had 4 entries that kind of surpassed all the other entries. We had posted those yesterday, but I think we can announce a winner now. And also, I believe Phil has a separate announcement regarding mascots.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead, Rick?
Okay, so Max, did you want to announce?
Yeah, sounds good. So the winner of the mascot contest was Hemi Goat, GOAT, by Flipped Face C. And if you go to the Hemi Twitter and scroll down, there's a tweet with "Meet the Final Four," and it's the I don't know how to describe it. It's the one. It's the goat, the one that looks like a goat with the Bitcoin and Ethereum tokens. Which what's that? It looks like I can't place the name of that cartoon it's from, but there's a style that it reminds me of. Do you know what I'm talking about, Rick?
It has, so to me it has like major like Adventure Time / like Pokemon vibes, which I'm all about. I love
Adventure Time. That's the one. Yeah,
Adventure Time. Yeah, it just looks like one of the Adventure Time wizards, so I was stoked on that. All the entries were amazing. But yeah, there were 4 that just had more votes than others, and we had a winner. So congrats to Flipface City. Awesome job. We have a community mascot. Before we move on to some questions that are coming in, Phil, did you want to address your announcement regarding mascots?
Okay. Look, this mascot contest was awesome, and I just love the fact that people dove into it. The name contest was amazing, so now I've been saying Amigos and Amigos for a while now. It's kind of stuck, but I look at these 4, and I think I actually think there's room for 2. There's the goat, right, which appears to be the people's favorite, right? And I hope by presenting the goat, you all mean greatest of all time. I hope. But I don't know, the Mega Man with the Hemi logo visor. When I look at these 4, that's the one I'd have on a T-shirt. If I'm being honest, right? So I think there might, I don't know, there might be room for the 2 to coexist. the 3D modeled one, my only thought there is that one is actually tough to represent on a t-shirt. What I like about the goat and we'll call him the Mega Man, is that you could blow it up to a t-shirt, you could blow it up to a gigantic poster if you wanted to, or you can shrink it down to the size of something that fits on the side of a pen, right? And we do have, I think somebody named him Diggy, the lovable Chuck E. Cheese rodent that we have, as well. Love that one too. That the thing is that he's not really portable. So I think that I can pull CMO prerogative. I have to say, Rick, I like two of them.
So, it's very rare that I'm speechless, but but so basically, we have two choices for our community mascot: one chosen by our community, and one chosen by the internal team. So we inevitably have two community mascots now. So how's that gonna work? I don't know, but it's more love to spread, right?
In the hands of a lesser community, that would be a problem.
I was waiting for that. I was waiting for how you're going to get out of this one.
In the hands of a lesser community, what you described would be a problem. But again, I just love it. I was just kind of overwhelmed by just how awesome these submissions were. We've got some Pokemon references. The one that looks like a cute little orange, by, let's see, I think the user's name is Rascal with a ZK, Razkal. That's interesting because when we started Hemi, we actually, we were still thinking of a name. I think it was called, the internal code name was something like BVM or Block Virtual Machine or something like that. But we were looking at citrus metaphors as kind of like the early creative direction. So it's interesting that somebody in our community keyed on that, because I have no reason to believe that Rascal was part of the original core team. But it is interesting because very early on, for some reason, we liked citrus metaphors. We liked, obviously, you can see we like the orange color. And we were going through names like every single breed and cultivar of orange. We were actually considering as a name. So even though it got only 6 votes, it did touch an emotional chord with yours truly.
So, in summation, Phil is very emotionally attached to all of the submissions. So you all did an incredible job as always. So
did you guys think that quote unquote Batman was such a big softie? Right,
I mean, I knew it, but I think this is breaking for the community. And yeah, you heard it here first. We have 2 community mascots. Everyone loved everything. So, amigos and amigos, rejoice. I got some questions on the board, so we're gonna switch.
All right,
We're gonna switch gears real quick. Max, question from Discord member Anshul: how will PopStat work? What is the refreshing time? PopStat seems to be under issues during the last few days.
I'll take a look at that. I think probably in part of the infrastructure migration, something didn't get hooked up correctly, so we are in the case, but yeah, should have that back up soon.
Sounds good. We have another question coming in from Discord. member K21VAIBHAV. Can you explain what is the risk of conflict if we run two pop miners with the same private key?
Sure. If you want to do that, you're more than welcome to. You're not going to get penalized in any sort of like anti-Sybil mechanism or whatever. The main thing is they will both often try to sign conflicting transactions, and so that can lead to you seeing a lot of ugly-looking errors in the pop miner because they're basically the way it works is with pop, your address that you're using, your private key has access to a number of UTXOs, and when the pop miner sees a new keystone, it attempts to create a new transaction with one of those UTXOs, and so if both of the pop miners use the same UTXO, they're going to create conflicting transactions, and only one of those can get into Bitcoin. So if you're welcome to do it. It's not recommended because of the errors you'll probably see in doing so. But if you do want to do that, you can fund your address with multiple UTXOs. Basically, send Bitcoin to that address multiple times, and the more UTXOs you have, the lower of a chance there is that those two pop miners are going to try to grab the same one. But also, if they do grab two different UTXOs, it's going to mine the same keystone twice, and you're not going to get additional points incentives for double mining a keystone. So you might spend some more TBTC than you expected without getting pop mining incentivized testnet points in response to it. So free to do it. You're not going to get caught by any anti-Sybils, but you may spend TBTC double mining, or you may see a bunch of ugly errors on conflicting transactions.
Thank you for that response. A couple more questions coming in. Will the pop miner be incentivized only on mainnet?
The pop miner is actually going to be incentivized on testnet primarily. Like mainnet, pop mining will be incentivized, but not through the points program. It'll be a separate mechanic, which we'll post some more information about soon. But basically, just on-chain rewards for doing the pop mining that the protocol gives out. So for the points program specifically, incentives will only be for testnet pop mining. And so again, if you go to the PopStats testnet page and you look up your address, you can see how many keystones you mined. And we will be posting the total points and an audited breakdown of where those points are coming from soon there. We're still working out the final logic for how points are going to get distributed because we're trying to make it fair with making sure that people who are pop mining and because of infrastructure issues, they're not able to mine every keystone. We're doing a thing where we're analyzing each person's pop mining performance in relation to kind of the standard that other regular users were getting at that point in time. So still finalizing how that's going to work, but you will get points for those, and those will show on that dashboard, and they will also be echoed to Absinthe once we begin posting them.
All right, here's a good one. I'm gonna preamble this with please feel free to be braggy. Okay. What's the future utility of Hemi, and how is Hemi going to beat other L2s?
Good question. So Hemi, you can think of Hemi as essentially an infrastructure play. Like obviously we're going to be building in-house apps and we're working with tons of partners for things you can do on day one. But the core business model, if you will, of the Hemi chain is providing chain infrastructure basically to initially DApps that want to work with Ethereum and Bitcoin assets, but then eventually also with Chain Builder to an ecosystem of L3s, L4s, people who want to launch their own chains that either do interesting things talking to Bitcoin with HVM or using Ethereum and Bitcoin assets in their own DApp specific chains, app chains, whatever, or chains that want to get Bitcoin security. So even if they're not interested in the programmability, they can still use POP and inherit Bitcoin security through Hemi as sort of a security aggregation layer. So utility of Hemi token is basically fueling that entire ecosystem, paying fees to either use that network directly and interact with protocols that benefit from Hemi's Bitcoin interoperability features and combining Bitcoin and Ethereum in one usable EVM, or eventually also chains that are paying in the Hemi ecosystem to use that POP security aggregation to publish data to Hemi for DA eventually when we launch a separate DA product. And so you can think of it mainly as infrastructure, and the utilities being able to use those features that Hemi is exposing from both Bitcoin and Ethereum to dApps and eventually an ecosystem of chains.
Awesome. Question from our voice chat. Why did some transactions we made about 2 months ago take 2 to 3 minutes to be approved, while the Explorer always showed 12 seconds, like it does now? Is this some other kind of completion time?
I'm not sure exactly what you're asking about. So on the Explorer, by the way, is not the be-all, end-all canonical truth of what happened like with transaction propagation and stuff, because the Explorer can see transactions before or after they're seen by the sequencer or other nodes on the network. So it's not it's the canonical answer for everything that's actually in the chain. But as far as stuff like transaction propagation, it's not the be-all, end-all to trust. But I'm not sure what metric specifically they're looking at. So if you look at a transaction, it has the timestamp, and then it has the confirmed within less than 12 seconds. That confirmed within, I'm not sure how Block Scout measures that, but I don't think it's super reliable. I have also seen transactions that take a while to get into a block, whether that be just network transaction propagation or blocks were full and we had to wait till the gas limit lowered for a transaction to get in or whatever. And sometimes that amount of time it sat in the mempool is not reflected on the Block Scout statistics. So that can be the obvious reason for that would be Block Scout may not have seen it when it was first propagated. So it may have only seen it when it actually got into a block or shortly before. But I have noticed that the confirm time sometimes is unreliable, so it could be something else as well.
All right. Our next question is from Hadu. Hey, Hadu. Any thoughts about when testnet snapshot?
Right before mainnet launch, which public date TBD, but it's going to be basically we'll announce a mainnet date, and then from that basically work backwards to a testnet snapshot right before it, and then basically when the snapshot occurs, any points earned up to that point are all the points that will be distributed as part of incentivized testnet, and then a new season of the points program will start primarily focused on mainnet tasks. So no answer on the date yet, but it'll be right before mainnet public launch.
While we're on the subject of mainnet tasks, is there any info you can share regarding what tasks folks will be able to perform on mainnet?
Yeah, so by no means a complete list, but just going through some of the stuff. Day one, we're going to have DEXs, lending protocols, and so a lot of the points program is going to be focused on activities engaging with those. So still working out the final details on stuff like points multipliers and what the conversion is between, an asset deposited for X amount of time and how many points you get. And we're going to be probably throughout the mainnet, season one, adjusting stuff to incentivize activity we think, contributes most to the ecosystem. So if a particular pool is maybe less liquid than we think it should be, we could add additional incentives to that. But high level, the incentives for DEXs will basically be based on the US dollar value of the assets for the duration of time they're in the DEX, with potentially some logic around for like a Uniswap V3 position, any sort of like concentrated liquidity, also taking in the spread of that. So you can't just provide, liquidity that's never going to get touched and collect a bunch of points for it. And then for the lending, and then also potentially for trading volume, but we're still thinking through the incentive mechanics because we don't want to incentivize people to do wash trading. But if people are doing actual trading activity, obviously that's something we want to incentivize and give people some points for. So we're thinking through how to do that, and we'll announce more details in kind of a more formal mainnet incentive plan in the fairly near future. And then for the lending protocols, it'll be similar. So amount of USD value of assets that you're providing as liquidity essentially to the lending market, and getting paid in points per dollar per unit time. and also looking at maybe doing incentives on taking out loans, but that is still TBD. And there will be other stuff with other protocols as well, but those are probably the two biggest and most interesting ones. We're also not sure if these are going to be day one, but we're looking at some staking protocols that, kind of an eigenlayer-like protocol that you could stake assets in and, be part of a AVS. And so if those are on day one, we'll be incentivizing those as well. And other than DEX's lending, there may be some other protocols on day one in other categories that will incentivize differently. But the main theme is going to be dollar value of assets per unit time, and then with multipliers for things that need either additional incentives or it's a asset that we're partnered with somebody on, and so we're providing a points multiplier to those assets.
All right. Oh, we have a deluge of questions. I think that's the proper term. A metric F ton, if you will. Okay, here we go. A question maybe already asked, but what is new with the Hemi hatchling NFTs? Can you explain the difference between the air one and the three other elements?
I am by no means the expert on this, but I'll give you what I know about it. So we will be doing something in mainnet with Hemi hatchlings. The original goal of Hemi hatchlings was basically, and I think Phil can probably describe this better than I can, but security as an artistic medium, and so being able to look at Bitcoin finality basically of the NFT's issuance itself and have the NFT evolve based on that. And so we'll be continuing with that theme in mainnet. So if you have a Hemi hatchling, it will transfer over to mainnet, or will be claimable on mainnet, some version of like reflecting it over or something. As far as the difference between the air and the other ones, I believe the air one maybe was only given away in the onboarding capsule NFTs, and the other ones are mintable directly on the site, but I'm not 100% sure on that. It's also been a while.
Yeah, that's good to know. That was certainly the case. Yeah, I mean, all of the above, and I'm going to add to that obviously, people who have those Hemi hatchlings, that is a marker of your OG-ness within the Hemi within the Hemi community. So to those of you, congratulations. And it really is kind of a preview, kind of a light under the door, because the notion of security as an artistic medium is actually kind of inspiring, and we're also working on it in terms of how it might affect game playable assets as well. So stay tuned on that front. But yeah, the idea that digital art can be security sensitive, and what can you do with that's something that we explored earlier this year, but are likely to continue. But I will say again that those of you who were very, very early, we had two initial projects that internally we kind of called them toys, right? I mean, one of them was the Hemi hatchlings, and the other one was crypto chords, which was the basis for the coding challenge that we put up. And crypto chords, those of you developers on here, if you missed the coding challenge, you can check it out on GitHub. It's essentially the music of three blockchains. So it presents a keyboard. The lower register is Bitcoin, the middle register is Hemi, and the upper register is Ethereum. And as certain transactions are made on those three networks, a note is played, right? So it's a very early way of thinking about kind of the music of the blockchain. So between that and Hemi hashlings, those were two again toys that we put out there for the community. But yeah, I mean, between the two though, if you're in possession of a OG Hemi hashlings, you're definitely one of the earlier, if not the earliest, Hemigos that joined us back in the day. So congratulations.
Which is very apt because the Hemigo is now our community mascot, or one of them, according to certain members of the team.
Opinions differ. Move on.
Opinions differ. Here's a couple questions I can knock out real quick. When mainnet? Soon. When will Rick do a cartwheel or let the intern talk? When we have 500 people in the audience. All right, now on to real questions. Where are we? All right, Max, here's a good one for you. What measures does Hemi take to protect user privacy when we reach mainnet?
Good question. So Deimos, I think, is kind of worth discussing here. So Deimos, we used a very privacy-preserving way of doing Sybil detection. And so one of the things when we first announced it, people were asking, is it KYC AML? And it's very different. So it's using biometrics and basically just storing a hash, if you will, of certain biometric features that can then be later referenced without there being a database of personally identifiable information that could be leaked or anything of that sort. And so we have, most blockchains generally are privacy preserving, at least if you use them right. So we're not doing any privacy specific features, at least as part of the initial plan, stuff like, encrypted transactions. People, if they want, can deploy EVM level applications that could do, shielded transactions and things of that sort. It's not the focus of what we're doing, but you could build that on top of Hemi if you wanted. But from a privacy perspective, anything we're doing around user identification, we're using the most privacy preserving way to do that, a la Deimos. And then for anything else on chain, it's pretty much the same privacy as using a normal EVM network. So people can run chain analysis tools, but there are best practices if you want to preserve anonymity or not link your EOAs together and based on your behavior. So nothing privacy preserving from the protocol, like zero knowledge sense. People are free to launch those kinds of protocols, but it's not something we're focused on. But we are trying to, anything we do that would actually pull in personally identifiable information. We're trying to do it in the most privacy preserving way and also make it wherever we can optional. But it is a blockchain, so it's already pretty private.
All right, I got a couple questions coming in from Discord. You guys can just join us here on X and tag me. But I mean, questions are questions. Will testnet points be converted into tokens or distributed via leaderboard ranking?
Two parts. First part, it is an incentivized testnet, so make of that what you will. So can't answer that question directly, but incentivized testnet and points will be honored as part of that incentive program. As for the second part about leaderboards, we're not going to do, at least for season one, the current incentivized testnet season we're in, we're not going to be doing anything around leaderboard rankings, as in only the top X number of people get a reward. It will be, as the mantra's always been, points are points. The more points you have, the more incentives that equates to, but unconnected from where that actually ranks you relative to other people. And I also saw a related question, which I'll just answer now because it's on topic, which was, it was about the amount of rewards given for the incentivized testnet. That is still TBD, and a lot of that will be based on how many unique people we get through Deimos as well. So, like I said, I think a few weeks ago, if only 2,000 people verified through Deimos, that'd be a very different incentive allocation than what we're currently seeing now with 40,000 plus people verified. But the actual amount will partially depend on that final number when we do the snapshot as well.
Max, is that the question about the 500,000? Is that the 500,000 wallet question that you were referring to? Because if not, I have a question.
No, it was a different one. I can't find it now, but that's what the thesis was, and it didn't have the number of 500,000 in it, so this must be a different question.
All right, perfect. All right, well, strap in, because I'm really not sure what this means. How does the team feel about 500,000 wallet addresses? Now only 30,000 are certified. What will follow to increase the number of active people on the main network?
So I assume the 500,000 is referring to EOAs, and that's to be expected. There's a lot of people doing Sybil farming activities with tons of different EOAs, so it's not surprising that not every single EOA is matched to a verified human. We've actually been really impressed and excited with how many verifications we did get. I think I don't want to front run any marketing comm stuff, but apologies if I do. But I think we're the only.
Do it.
All right, let's go for it. I think we're the only network that's actually done a large scale incentivized testnet with verified humans rather than just using like on chain analytics for anti-Sybiling. And so it's kind of hard to compare to other projects, but I don't think there's a lot of incentivized testnets that had, 40,000 plus unique, provable individual humans participating. And I think that number is going to grow. I don't know where it's going to be by the time we do the snapshot, but we've been, at least internally, very impressed with that number so far. As far as getting people to use Hemi, I mean, it pretty much just comes down to providing a good product and getting protocols onboarded, partnering with more protocols, getting more stuff on Hemi for people to do. One of the kind of near-term goals of Hemi will be as a liquidity center for Bitcoin-related assets. So even though we are going to have our canonical, HBTC as part of the L2, we also want to do a lot of things around other versions of Bitcoin that are floating around in the Ethereum and Bitcoin L2 space, and be kind of a center point for liquidity and DeFi activities around all those types of assets. And I think that's going to be a very interesting, kind of unique use case of Hemi compared to what you can do on other networks. A place where you could bring 10 different versions of Bitcoin LSTs and LRTs and wrap tokens, and there'd be, somewhere to put them and do something productive or interesting with them, no matter which asset that is. So excited to see that. I think that'll bring in a lot of users and a lot of the more Bitcoin aligned crowd. On the Ethereum side, it's very fierce competition with other L2s that have all kinds of DeFi protocols, but we are, the number of partners we have lined up for our mainnet release is definitely pretty up there as far as comparisons to other Ethereum L2s and what they had on day one for people to do, and we'll be focusing on scaling that out more. And I think that'll bring over a lot of users either from those protocols that want to use it on a new chain, or people on Ethereum looking for stuff to do that see, good yield opportunities or good, pricing for trading Ethereum-based assets on Hemi. And we're going to be doing a lot to incentivize liquidity around that to attract those people in. So, yeah, short answer: liquidity epicenter for Bitcoin assets. I think will be a really interesting, unique feature. On the Ethereum side, we're doing all the standard stuff people would expect, getting a bunch of DeFi protocols and a bunch of, as we call them, shoots and ladders of things for people to do with their Ethereum-based assets. So I think early on that'll bring in a lot of users, and then kind of longer term, I think there's going to be two parts to that. One is getting more unique, interesting DeFi applications built around HVM and utilizing our Bitcoin interoperability features. So there's a lot of cool Bitcoin-related protocols people can build on Hemi that you really can't build anywhere else. So, that could be anything from a Bitcoin MEV marketplace or a transaction accelerator to, non-custodial Bitcoin lending. And so there's a lot of cool things that I think people will build on Hemi using those technologies. And then super long term is Chain Builder, which is, there's a lot of different chain ecosystems trying to get people to launch L2s, L3s, L4s inside their ecosystem. But I think we have a pretty compelling use case of access to native Bitcoin and native Ethereum assets in one place, in one ecosystem, and having that whole ecosystem secured by Bitcoin finality. And so I think from the customer perspective of people wanting to launch chains, I think that'll be a compelling case to get people to build on Hemi versus, staying in just Ethereum land or just Bitcoin L2 land.
All right. I now have more tags than I do followers, which is kind of hilarious. Okay.
If you ask a question, you have to follow Rick. That's the new rule.
Oh my God, no. Okay, we will not be answering any questions about the intern, so let's skip those for now. What are the core features and real-world use cases Hemi is focusing on to differentiate itself in the cryptocurrency and blockchain ecosystem? Wow, that's a great question.
It is, and I think I kind of already covered a lot of that with the HVM and use cases. But just to recap, I think the most obvious and most differentiating factor from other chains will definitely be HVM and things people build around that. So, dive into a little more detail. You could build a non-custodial Bitcoin marketplace where you can post, Ethereum assets, collateral, borrow Bitcoin natively on the Bitcoin chain, go and use it, and then repay your loan in native Bitcoin and get your collateral back, all completely permissionless, which is very hard to do with a Bitcoin header relay system without introducing oracles and different trust assumptions. I think there's going to be a race in the Bitcoin space for Bitcoin security, basically, eigenlayer, but the Bitcoin version of it. And so we're partnering with a couple different protocols that are playing around in that space. And there's also some really cool things you can do with HVM around that. So a lot of if you look at Bitcoin staking, I'm talking about native non-custodial Bitcoin staking here. The biggest challenge is how you lock up Bitcoin on the Bitcoin chain in a way that is slashable and useful from a security perspective. And one of the big challenges in doing that is being able to observe Bitcoin. And one of the things HVM does that you can't do with other Bitcoin interoperability solutions is look at the actual Bitcoin UTXO table and see, is a transaction spent or not? And look, traverse through the chain through transaction graphs to see how things are being spent. And that's a really important building block of non-custodial Bitcoin staking systems. So I think there's going to be some cool stuff built around that, and that's a huge market for basically getting the trillions of dollars in value on Bitcoin to be productive and usable for providing security to chains or to DeFi protocols that need collateral for custodial positions or whatnot. So I think that's going to be interesting, and we have some cool stuff in the works on that front. And as far as other use cases, I mean, just looking at DeFi in general, anywhere where you can, the Ethereum DeFi space is huge, and it's limited just to basically Ethereum assets and, wrapped Bitcoin and a couple tokens from other chains brought over through, a layer 0 or something like that. And I think being able to offer, one chain where, we have support for all those interoperability protocols like layer 0, but also you can work with native Bitcoin and native Ethereum assets in one place. I think that opens a lot of gates, even if they're not using HVM directly, just being able to utilize those two assets in the same places. Exciting and unlocks a lot of cool opportunities for DeFi applications. So that's the long-winded answer. But yeah, lots of exciting areas where I think Hemi has really cool differentiating factors, both from what's happening on the pure Bitcoin L2 front, but also the pure Ethereum L2 front.
All right. I need to summarize about 15 questions into one simple question. So, sorry, I've been working on this behind the scenes. I think the easiest way to say this is, can you please explain how Demos is not KYC?
Yeah, sure. And actually, I don't know if John's able to hop on. He's the expert on this, but basically, KYC, AML, or some MSB, whatever acronym you want to throw on it. Usually, that verification is a lot more intrusive. So it's looking at stuff like, what country are you a citizen of, or what, even collecting taxpayer identification information, your home address, stuff like that. The Demos is purely anti-Sybil, so it's just determining that you're a unique human that's unique from all the other people claiming to be unique in the Demos system. So it's not collecting any information about, anything financial, anything that could identify you from your address or email or anything of that sort. It is purely looking at biometrics and determining if you are indeed a unique person or if you've already signed up for Deimos. And I won't go into the the privacy data retention aspect because I'm not terribly familiar with that, but I think if John is available, he could speak more to that as well. Is he on? I don't even see him on the list anymore.
No, I think he must have split.
Yeah, John had to take a call, unfortunately.
Yeah, okay. Well, high level is basically biometrics for uniqueness is way less intrusive than KYCML with like actual identifiable, legal or financial information.
All right. I believe I know the answer to this one, but it can just be a quickie. When can we expect tokenomics?
Soon, and it'll come out in multiple parts. So we'll be releasing information on the pop tokenomics, how pop mining is going to work. That's going to be coming very soon. Things like tokenomics from the mainnet incentivization. I don't know whether that's called mainnet season 1 or if we're going to call it season 2, but whatever that next season is for mainnet incentives, we'll be announcing a lot of that information in the coming weeks. And then overall tokenomics, like the pie chart, that'll be coming soon, probably shortly after mainnet, but exact date TBD.
All right.
Which also dovetails into another question that we usually get. I don't know if we got it this time, but will TGE be at mainnet? Probably not, but undecided. But it will probably be mainnet first, make sure everything's working properly, give people time to onboard onto the network, get TVL and protocols, and then follow up shortly after with some sort of TGE type event. But undecided, and we'll announce more details soon.
Max Sanchez, ladies and gentlemen, Hemi co-founder and psychic, because I was literally about to ask you that question. Okay. What can we expect from the partnership with OmniChain, Layer 0, for instance?
I'm pretty much interoperability, being able to pull assets from tons of different chains and use them in the DeFi chutes and ladders on Hemi. So pretty much anything that you see it being used for on other chains that will work on Hemi as well. A lot of our partners that we're onboarding have parts of their protocol that benefit from Layer 0. For example, Sushi has, I think they call it XSwap, which lets you do cross-chain swaps and benefit from that cross-chain liquidity pool they put together. So that'll be one of the use cases of Layer 0. Also, more than likely, the official stable coins on the Hemi network, USDC, USDT, whatever those stable coins were, primarily supporting and incentivizing in the DeFi protocols, those will be the Layer 0/Stargate versions of those to make interoperability easier, because a lot of people want to bring those assets from other L2s rather than just from the native Ethereum base asset itself. And then there's also a couple of other interoperability protocols that are more focused on the Bitcoin side. I'm not sure if we've announced them yet or they're going to be announced soon, but those will also facilitate moving different types of Bitcoin LSTs, LRTs from some of the other Bitcoin L2s on Hemi to do cool stuff with those as well. So I'm not sure if those are announced yet, but those will also come in for Layer 0. You can kind of think of as mostly the Ethereum asset interoperability side for cross-chain, anything that's not coming directly from the Ethereum chain itself. So things coming from other L2s, and then also the other kind of EVM adjacent but not Bitcoin world of your Solanas and your Avalanches and stuff of that nature.
Awesome. So we are right at the top of the hour. Max, I want to be respectful of your time. Do you have time for another question or prefer to wrap?
Yeah, I can stick around for another 10-ish minutes.
Okay. We can try to fit in as many as possible in this time. How do the frameworks and consensus mechanisms ensure scalability and security?
Good question. So the way POP works is it's basically you can think of it kind of as a finality gadget. And if you're familiar with some of the other finality gadget thinking, where it lays on top of an existing block production consensus protocol and then reinforces that with Bitcoin finality. And so some of the other approaches to, actually most if not all of the other approaches to Bitcoin security inheritance tightly couple the Bitcoin security inheritance with the block production. And so by decoupling those, it basically lets us natively support, it won't be day one mainnet, but in the relatively near future, our own native decentralized sequencing. So we can use a liveness preserving version of Ethereum style proof of stake, for example, and then layer proof of proof on top of that for the Hemi L2 itself. But then also looking forward into the chain builder ecosystem, because POP is again that separate finality gadget you can throw on top of any other block production consensus protocol. That means that people could launch L3s that use other forms of proof of stake. So whether you want a liveness preserving one like Ethereum, or one that prioritizes security over liveness like Cosmos style, or you could even use proof of work. You could use proof of spacetime. Whatever block production consensus protocol you want, you can still inherit Bitcoin security and finality through Hemi as the security aggregation layer. And also, if all of the L3s are using proof of proof through Hemi, they're all getting Bitcoin finality in lockstep with each other. So that also gives benefits for cross-chain interoperability, having this kind of mutual Bitcoin finality inheritance between all the chains. So each chain can know when the remote chain that it's talking to has also received Bitcoin finality up to a certain block height.
All right. I'm seeing a couple more, but here's one. Looping ? Does that mean anything to you?
Answer: yes.
Awesome.
For context, looping is basically being able to take assets and put them in DeFi protocols and loop up or increase your exposure using leverage. And there are a couple different types of looping, but we are planning on doing something with asset looping. One of our kind of in-house / partner, internal partner protocols is Metronome, and Metronome lets people mint synthetic assets, and so you can deposit. And I'm by no means the expert on this. I'm a consensus protocol guy, not a DeFi guy. But you can basically, put in, say, Bitcoin and then mint MSBTC against that as collateral. And so doing that, you'd be able to basically take one Bitcoin and turn it into several Bitcoin of exposure to some sort of yield farming product or staking product or whatever. But yes, we are planning on doing some cool stuff around looping, largely centered around Metronome, but we are also exploring some other interesting ideas.
Awesome. All right. I'm so glad. I was like, is this going to be a loaded question? I don't know how to approach this. But we are just at 5 past the hour, so we are going to wrap things up for this week. I just want to personally thank everyone for coming out. It's a new platform. We had a couple bugs in the beginning, but that's to be expected. So thank you all for attending our first Midweek with Max on X Spaces. We hope to see you all back next week. As always, thank you to our slew of community moderators and helpers, including the intern. I have to say that.
Because he's here.
Because he's here. He should be doing the busy work I gave him, but we'll discuss that after this call. But with that said, we'll turn things over to
50 push-ups on your face, intern.
Yeah, seriously. And do the busy work we gave you. But yeah, thank you all so much, guys. We really appreciate the support and coming out. We'll be here next week and every week. I'm going to turn it back to Phil and Max for a final wrap up. And I hope you all have a great day.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for coming out. Super exciting to see a lot of familiar faces from Discord. We're able to make it over to Twitter. So glad to see that. And we were able to take questions from multiple locations. So hopefully if you asked a question, we were, at least towards the beginning, we were able to answer it. And a huge shout out to the community moderators, keeping the community safe and functional. I know it definitely helps out Rick and Joshua there. Their lives are a lot better for that. So huge shout out there, and we will see you next week.
All right. Have a good one, gang.